Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of our editor Q&A roundtable discussions. I'm your host, Jenna Garasio, and I'm the Director of Content Strategy here at Fashion Snoops. And I'm joined today by a handful of my incredible colleagues to address and dissect some of the important questions we've received over the last now 30 webinars. We've been overwhelmed by the incredible global community we've seen come together throughout our Fear and to Feel webinar series, and have added these Friday Q&As to ensure we address all the incredible ideas and questions that have come up throughout these last months. So thank you so much for being here with us again on this Friday. For any of you who happen to be new to Fashion Snoops or unfamiliar, maybe this is your first webinar, Fashion Snoops is a global trend forecasting agency. For the past 20 years, we have helped brands, retailers, manufacturers, and fashion accessories, home decor, beauty, media, marketing, and other consumer-facing industries by using artificial and human intelligence to surface trend-driven business opportunities. Before I get into today's exciting conversation, I want to pass it over to our marketing manager, Sarah, to say a few words.
Thanks, Jenna. These Q&A sessions are very representative to our ethos here at FS. You know, we've been talking about interdependence for a while now, and we truly practice what we preach. While we do serve 9 different markets on the FS platform, all of our teams really do work together to produce our content. Right now, we're in the midst of planning our big meetings to discuss next season's forecast for Spring Summer 22. And they're some of my favorite days at FS because the entire team comes together, and it's similar to these Q&As where we talk about these big picture issues and cultural shifts that are bubbling up. And that helps us determine things like what seasonal colors will speak to these feelings consumers have, what shapes reflect this moment we're living in. And if you would like to see more of this in action, our team can show you more of how this evolution happens on the FS platform. It's truly such a valuable tool at this time because there's so many ways for you and your team to use it collaboratively. So if you would like more information, just type contact in the chat box or email us at sales@fashionsnoops.com, and our team can give you a customized walkthrough and show you how the FS platform can answer your biggest questions. And for your questions right now, our team's going to take it over, and can't wait to hear from you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone's beautiful faces today. I believe for those of you that are in the audience who are viewing, you should be able to see all of our faces on the screen. If not, there should be an option available at the top right corner to change to speaker view. So with that, I'd like to get started. And before I start with our conversation and get into the questions, I was hoping we could all go around and just introduce ourselves. So we don't have a list to go down, so I'm just gonna say your name, and then if you could just introduce who you are and what market you are responsible for, that would be awesome. Starting with Hallie.
Hi everyone, I'm Hallie. I'm the Director of Accessories at FS.
Thanks, Hallie. And Michael.
Hey guys, good to see you again. I'm Michael Fisher, VP Creative Director of Menswear.
Chelsea.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea. I am a youth and accessories editor here at Fashion Snoops.
Melissa.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa. I'm VP and Creative Head of Women's at Fashion Snoops.
Kristen.
Hi everyone, my name is Kristen and I am a home interiors editor at Fashion Snoops.
And Mallory.
Hi everyone, I'm Mallory and I'm a beauty editor here at Fashion Snoops.
William.
Hi everyone, I'm William, Director of Activewear here at Fashion Snoops. I work out of Brooklyn and usually out of the New York office.
And Nia.
Hi everyone, I'm Nia. I'm a materials editor at Fashion Snoops.
And Jason.
Hi guys, I'm Jason. I'm the menswear editor and color expert.
And then we also have our founder, Lily Barilovich, who is joining us as well. She will be primarily working in the Q&A, answering any questions you guys have along the way. All right, so with that, I think we can jump into it. So one of the first questions I wanted to start off with is something we've received in a couple different webinars, and I think is also something that's been in a lot of discussion across the media this week, which is regards to the future of fashion shows and presentations. So we wanted to kind of unpack this and really question what the future is here. I know we've been getting a lot of questions surrounding this. I wanted to kick it to you first, Michael, to see if you could kind of lead us in how you kind of expect the future to turn out.
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question, and a lot has been unfolding in just the last few weeks. So there's still so much to kind of figure out as we kind of proceed into fashion season in the coming months. Those of you that have been subscribing to us, we've been mentioning this term phygital for a really long time, which of course is the merge of physical and digital into one space. And that's really what it seems like most of these organizations are going to be doing. The first ones that really kind of announced what was going to be happening were the organizers behind London Fashion Week Men's. And last week they announced they were going to completely turn the June event into a completely digital space, which was really interesting. They really kind of see this as kind of a cultural fashion week platform. And in fact, they've renamed the event, them and Milan, to Digital Fashion Weeks. And so those will be happening in June and in July. The organizers behind Milan Fashion Week and Paris Fashion Week for men's also came out last week, actually this week, it's been a long week, saying that they also are going to be turning over to complete digital platforms. So what does that mean? It really means that they're going to be allowing these brands to kind of figure out when they want to communicate with people. And whereas before it was really more of a, industry-wide event, of course, you had to be a buyer or an editor for the most part to attend these events. Now it's really going to be like out into the world and for consumer facing to occur, which is really, really refreshing and interesting. The people that were behind Milan Fashion Week, they said there has to be a huge importance of connecting with the audience, not only business to business, but also business to consumer. Each brand is going to find a way to tell their story this season. So we expect we're going to see a lot of really interesting films that are going to be made, a lot of kind of behind the scenes digital versions of lookbooks and whatnot. It's going to be very interesting for us as a team to analyze the runways, which is something that of course we put a lot of effort into. So we don't really know what to expect until we actually see what's going to be happening. As of now, they're still saying that there's going to be a September Milan combined event between men's and women's, but those brands can also participate in the digital version that's happening earlier in the summer. I'm still kind of skeptical whether that's actually going to happen in September. If it does, they admit that it may be really limiting as far as how many people are actually going to go and attend those things in person. So yeah, I think there's just going to be a lot of interesting things that are going to happen. We don't really know what it's going to look like, whether it's going to look really amateurish or whether it's going to be super compelling and inspiring. I think it's a really awesome time for small brands to finally be able to be on the same level, medium as all the big brands that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their shows, because they're all going to be on the same platform now and they can get really creative. And I think really there's a lot of room for them to say something, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's really what we're expecting to see. Moscow and Shanghai already went digital in March and April. That was right when COVID-19 was kind of starting. But I think those were more like digital kind of fashion shows. And I think we're expecting to see a lot more kind of storytelling happening as well. And actually, Melissa shared a really interesting link in Show and Tell this Wednesday, a couple days ago with Fashion Unites. Do you want to maybe say what that was about? Because that was kind of fun.
Sure. So the thing that I shared on Wednesday, it was Karine Reitfeld, who of course is the former editor-in-chief of French Vogue. She did a collaboration. It was actually a fundraiser for AMFAR. And what it was like basically the who's who of designers. So Olivier Roosting, to every top model that you could possibly think of at the moment. And then they went to the extent of prepping all of the models that were in this show. Now, keep in mind, it's a fundraiser, so this was really just, that was the intention, and it was a fun event. There wasn't a season on it. So I thought that it was really interesting, the approach, because it was like, okay, you combined everybody that would, normally be in a major fashion week show. And then what they did is they still had your hairstylist, your nail guys, your makeup artists, and they had them inform the models what they're going for, and then they needed to do it at home. And then the models just worked out of their own wardrobe, which of course is amazing anyway, and did a fashion show from their own home. So you were seeing everybody's living room that they were showcasing this in. So it was a kind of lighthearted, I think, introduction to that, because I think of, the future of Women's Fashion Week, and we almost have an advantage of being in September, October. So, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like for us yet. But, you think of what Karine Reitfeld did, and I wonder, if Belmont said, okay, we can't have this open to everybody, or we're still at the point of sending our samples out to models, how that would then look. If you put that in the aspect of here's our digital fashion show, which would then be for next season, would we get a lot more viewers into that? So it'll be interesting to see. I think another thing that, happened because COVID-19 kind of hit us in the midst of our Milan Fashion Week for women's, and how Giorgio Armani still held his collection when everything was starting to shut down. However, he had no audience. So I wonder, the kind of the joy that I think fashion shows in real life bring to us, maybe we'll also see a way that they're able to facilitate having a show, closed doors, but we're all able to see it and like evoke some of those amazing atmospheres like what we've seen from Balenciaga and things like that. I don't think it's going to be as amped up as we've seen previously, but that could be interesting.
And I think that's okay. Honestly, I think most of us that have been to fashion shows, I think we agree it's pretty obscene how much money is spent on these 10-minute shows, hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million in some cases, especially in the case of some of the larger French houses. And many of us who are on this call have been to the shows. They're such a pain in the ass to get to sometimes. Honestly, a lot of times when we're being able to live stream the shows, it's just as great. We get to hear the music. So I think this is a really good opportunity for them to kind of do that forced reset we've been talking about and find a more compelling way to tell the story for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Melissa, and Michael, what you both touched on is like, what does an audience mean going forward? And I think throughout the last couple of seasons, the last couple of years, really, this last decade, we've seen the democratization of fashion and Fashion Week, and how we're seeing all of these influencers come in and everyday people who have access to the fashion shows just when they're kind of published digitally. But what does that look like now? And I think, to your point, I think this is a really interesting opportunity for creativity. At the same time, it's also brands and designers getting creative on what that means from a merchandising and a buying perspective. So how are they going to make sure that in addition to having this creative experience, making sure that they can also prioritize the business element so that those who need to actually buy collections for their different stores can actually do that successfully. I know that we had that conversation with all of our trade show leads talking about what the future is going to be and how the physical of touching the fabric is so important these days. So it will be really interesting, I think. So that's something we'll definitely be tracking and looking at, and will be interesting to see how this evolves, especially in these upcoming months. And I think just to kind of pivot a little bit, but it's kind of in line with, I think, the future of fashion shows is something that is so important for fashion shows, even the people that aren't approaching or actually attending them, it still is a resource for a lot of inspiration for a lot of brands. So even if they're not going to the shows, a lot of what they end up designing is influenced by those shows and the trends that people see there. So one of the questions we've been getting kind of over and over again in all of our different webinars is to kind of, in the midst of COVID-19 and considering this cultural climate, what is really going to be the important colors coming up? And because we don't have the runways and the resort shows kind of trickling in right now, I think that it is more important not only to think about what colors are going to be important for consumers, but how is the concept of color changing for consumers in this moment? So we've had a lot of questions regarding where we see the shift in neutral colors kind of changing, and whether or not pastels will be more beneficial to consumers in this time of need compared to brights and earth tones. So I wanted to tap it over to Jason, our color expert, to kind of just unpack how you see the future of color happening within this COVID era.
Good question. So one of our primary color shifts that we're calling soothers. And so these are airy, light pastels that are barely there. And they're meant to evoke a sense of calm, especially during all this moment of chaos and who knows what's going to happen. So they just like remind us that even with everything going on, we can take a moment to enjoy the silence and stillness. On the other hand, we have another shift that we're calling dream state. And so that speaks to escapism. And that's what we all want right now. And so they do that. They're not quite so natural. They're familiar, but very intriguing and otherworldly.
And I think that for any of those of you who possibly attended our previous color webinars, if you haven't seen them already, Sarah will put in the chat on where you can access them. They're all available to watch on demand, but we really unpack and showcase what we're really talking about when we talk about those soothers and those dream states. So definitely worth going back and reviewing those. We really stand behind a lot of the shifts that we had called out initially, but some obviously are becoming more important now than others. But I think to Jason's point as well is that a lot of what we identified and a lot of the emotions connected to colors that we'd previously noted were pre-existing, and they've kind of accelerated now. So that need for tranquility or that need for escapism was already existing before, but now it's kind of more important than ever. And I think oh, Michael?
No, I was just going to add to what Jason said. I think that what's been really interesting over the last, however long it's been, 8 weeks, just looking at, what people are really kind of gravitating towards, even on social media, it seems to be, kind of two-sided conversation. One is, like you said, very comforting, very cleansing, like the colors that really kind of like take us to a whole Zen place. On the other side, the energy, I think like all the pent up energy just from being inside, people really seem to be really drawn towards these super warm, nostalgic colors from, other generations, other eras. And that's been really interesting to see. And I wonder how that will translate into the actual clothes that we're all wearing as soon as we can like break free, whether we're going to be like in the Zen very minimal camp, or whether they're going to be like, all out, everything, every color we could possibly put on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of continuing with that is as we kind of think about and dissect what important colors are going to be kind of evolving within these next 6 months. We also have been getting a lot of questions, and we've addressed this in a lot of webinars in different ways, but there's always the question of what those key product categories are going to be over the next 6 months, and which ones do we feel are poised to have an advantage over others, and maybe to help our different attendees and our different clients to really understand what they need to maybe push or kind of rethink. So I wanted to ask this question of key items to a couple of our different market leads. Starting, Michael, if you wanted to kick it off and kind of what you see for menswear.
Yeah, I think in the interim, if you've joined the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about how we really feel bullish about the return of tailoring in many ways and really beautiful dressed up silhouettes and shapes. And I think that will happen. I don't know if it's going to be as soon as we're out and back to business. I mean, people are going to want the extravagance and the drama and the beauty. What I've been finding in my research in the last week is there was a great article in Hypebeast, and they kind of called this new kind of category, this clean streetwear, which is really interesting to me. And, a lot of people have been talking all about the death of streetwear, et cetera, et cetera. And, the streetwear as we knew it in the last couple seasons certainly has calmed down. I think we're going to see a huge, shy away from overly logoed things and, super leisurely kind of looks. But we can't kind of escape the way that athleisure and streetwear make us feel. It makes us feel comfortable. It makes us feel good. So we would really be remiss to think that that's going to go away forever. I think what's going to happen is that kind of component is going to be worked into, a chino, a dress pant, a tailored jacket, a woven shirt. So it'll kind of have that streetwear sensibility, but it's not like screaming at you in your face. It's a lot subtler. It's a lot more quiet in its kind of influence. And I think that'll be really interesting. I think for the foreseeable future, materials are going to be the most important thing. I think we're all going to be really focused on what fabrics are going to do for us. And Nia's talked so much about that. what the fabrics can do for us, how they can protect us. That's going to be paramount of importance, in the coming months. Once we kind of feel a little more comfortable and calm down, I do feel really good about a beautiful return to like great suits and sport coats and, beautiful woven shirts and all of that kind of thing. So.
And Melissa, do you see any similarities from menswear transitioning into women's wear?
So I think the what Michael had mentioned kind of with this notion of athleisure, we're actually seeing a huge influence on anything knit or sweaters, which I think is great. It's kind of replacing athleisure and it becomes a little bit more sophisticated. So obviously right now we're in the midst of everybody embracing loungewear, and I see a couple of sweatshirts under things today on our call, on our webinar. But I think that this notion of kind of inactive, which is where we're in now, in our homes, and then taking it like from bed to street. So we've seen a lot more influence of sweater dressing too, like matched sets. So we've seen sets, like that's been something that was more of a driver in kind of like the pattern realm, or maybe like coordinated materials, a top and a bottom. But we're seeing a lot more happening when it comes to sweater sets. And I think the reason for that is because it brings us comfort. You want to wear something that kind of feels like home, but you could still put it together in a way that looks somewhat sophisticated, where it's a coordinated top, pant, or top and sweater skirt even. So that's something that I think we're seeing a lot more of. And even considering that it's spring summer, this has been something that's been bubbling up, just like it's grown as a classification before this happened, and now this happened, and it's like, okay, I want that comfort, even in the warmer months. And I think that's really key. The other thing that I think is key for women's are woven tops as a classification. That's obviously something that we're seeing, each of us right now, from the top to the waist, and that's kind of all you see. So that's something that I think we could take that more of an emotional approach to. We could embrace our color there. I see like some of us are wearing some prints with our woven tops right now. And I think that that's a way to be expressive without overdoing it, so to speak. Michael had also mentioned the notion of tailoring in menswear, which obviously is, traditionally more important than women's wear. However, I would say also, because I see a couple of you wearing blazers on today's webinar, that's something that I think we're going to move into probably more of like after 6 months from now, because that's something, once we're all out and about again, that's a great way to dress up anything that you have going on underneath.
Oh, sorry, I think my screen just froze for a second. Thanks, Melissa. So I think also just in regards to that idea of top-up effect, I wanted to ask Hallie how you kind of see that kind of bubbling up from an accessories perspective. Are there things beyond kind of the waist up you're looking at? How do you see accessories kind of evolving here?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important categories that I've spoken about before is jewelry, of course. People are investing in it at this time for a number of reasons, which means they're going to want to wear it after as well. I think first of all, Mother's Day is coming up. It's a great gift to give. People are kind of buying that as the product category for other people as well as themselves. It's like jewelry has sentimental and emotional value. So like Melissa was saying, like these pieces that you're buying now are for an emotional reason a lot of times. So I think another reason that it's going to have an advantage, jewelry, is going to be because of the waist up dressing. Because we're in this new work from home lifestyle, it's like you have no choice, but your Zoom calls are always from the waist up. So people are buying earrings and necklaces, and then it's kind of how do you transition those items after we're out. And like Michael was saying, like people are going to want to get dressed up, so you're going to buy a little bit more fancier pieces. I think like bold statements and colors and just kind of bigger silhouettes, and those aspects are going to be important. And I feel like that's going to continue on for the foreseeable future, whether we're still stuck in our stay-at-home orders or we're going to be able to go out either way. I also think that in footwear, I'm going to speak to this a little bit, I think later, but this idea of this like indoor outdoor, but the slipper and comfort silhouettes and how those are going to transition transition to outdoor pieces. So whether it is like a removable sole, but also just taking those slipper or loafer silhouettes and putting a traction sole on them so that you can actually wear them outside as like kind of keeping the comfort from home, but when you're actually able to go outside, you can wear them. And then, of course, the face mask, I feel like we would be remiss to not talk about it, but this has turned into an actual important product category for a lot of brands. So like retailers like Reformation and Outdoor Voices and so many other brands have actually added this as a category in their assortment. So people can buy them for themselves, they can buy them to donate. But what I really love about that is that they're using dead stock fabrics. So they're not actually producing this new like item with new materials they have to buy. They're using it as a sustainable initiative to actually push out this like and meet this demand for a new product, but using what they already have. So I think that's a super important category. I think even when this is over, people are still going to be kind of cautious about not wearing a face mask. We're so used to it now, and it's like such the norm that I think that it's going to be an important category going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think, and that's something, you know, we're all talking a lot about right now is these behaviors that are kind of being learned in this moment will have long lasting effects in the way that we engage in our own personal lives, the way that we buy, all of those kind of shifts in mentality are really going to have a big influence on how ultimately what we're going to want to buy. So I just wanted to also ask Chelsea, I mean, I think it's interesting too, we talk a lot about product shifts from the menswear and the women's wear perspective. We've done webinars on it, but obviously youth is being impacted in a very different way right now. Wonder if you could just kind of speak to where you see some nuances from a youth market perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think what everyone said about the other markets does apply to youth. I think this idea of like remote working for young professionals or remote learning is probably still going to be a reality going forward, whether it's, you know, going to school a couple of days a week and still staying at home for some of it. So I think this idea, what Michael said of like relaxed tailoring, I think there's still going to be a really cozy element. And a lot of young people have been implementing and integrating these lounge sets, like Melissa said, into their wardrobes. And then I think they'll want to, once they get to start kind of going out a little bit more, once restrictions are lifted a little bit, they'll want to integrate those lounge pieces into the wardrobes that already existed. They might want to invest in some statement pieces. So like, I like the idea of like what Michael said, a blazer, but like have a sweatshirt under it or with sweatpants. I think sweaters, like cardigans, throwing a cardigan over like a dress. I think it's just going to be implementing these lounge sets that they've kind of invested in for this time. And then putting in a little bit more tailoring to feel a little bit more like they're dressing up. But yeah, and I think some prints will be fun. A lot of DIY elements will come out of this because we've been stuck at home. A lot of young people haven't been going to school. So, I mean, tie-dye, I think will continue. We've seen a lot of tie-dye, but I think these like DIY elements will be really important for youth, for them to kind of stand out, show their creativity in a new way. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think it's also interesting to your point from the styling perspective and how we've all kind of been like introduced to the wonders of comfort in a very different way, where we're all allowed to wear all these comfortable things and people most likely not wanting to wear their normal kind of more fitted, less elastic clothing. So what that's going to look like, I think will be interesting. And I also think to your point, I mean, I do encourage anyone who's on the call who is a client to really make sure that they are looking at the youth section of our site right now, because so much of that styling and of that creativity is going to be coming out of the youth market. So as we kind of track those innovations, I think it's important, even if you're in more of like the Misty or more of the tailoring, to still be looking there for references of kind of how we're seeing different shifts happen in those markets. So I want to kind of jump, just kind of tacking onto that. We've obviously, as we're looking at what those key items are, a lot of people are also questioning any new products or innovations that we're expecting to merge. And we've talked about this in a couple different ways. Nia has talked about this extensively from a material perspective. I do want your opinion on that, and again in a second, Nia. But I think what's also interesting is we've looked at this from a perspective that we've launched this new series that we'll be posting on our site next week called Product as Solutions. It's part of our new Thrive Guides, but really here I think the importance of this moment is for everyone from designers to merchandisers to start thinking about what product means and how we need to rethink that process and also rethink the product in general. So Nia, I know you've talked about this quite a bit already in terms of innovative materials that we see kind of coming out of this, but I was wondering again if you could kind of just touch on some of the important elements you see kind of coming out of COVID.
Yeah, for sure. I think from a materials perspective, you know, a lot of finishes are being looked at right now as a smart way, I think, to still make what we make, but then prep those things for the time that we're in right now with all the uncertainty of what's to come. We've spoken before, like you mentioned, in some of our other webinars about antimicrobial finishes, and then all throughout our reports. So some ones that stand out for me, one's from Polygene, one's from HiQ. And then also if you know, companies are having trouble maybe sourcing or implementing these finishes, you know, within their product categories, since a lot of businesses have shifted those finishings to the healthcare industry. Something like odor blocking finishes, that's something that a lot of people don't know, also have antimicrobial properties. A big one that stands out for me is from Microban. And then in terms of just some new innovations, we spoke about Dyneema, we spoke about graphene, and how those innovations in terms of yarn can make things stronger, more resilient. So I think carbon fibers in general, and then even looking to maybe innovations like Celliant, which is a material that, you know, we've seen in home, we've also seen in loungewear and sleepwear, that can tech out fabrics so that they have these thermal properties and really boost the functionality of the things that we wear or have.
I mean, I think as we mentioned before, materials are definitely a focal point right now. So looking into those innovations, and of course, for any of you who are clients, Nia has some incredible reports on our site. We'll also be digging into all of the material specific innovations from a COVID perspective within our Thrive guides as well. So definitely be sure to check those out. I also wanted to switch this question to Mallory as well, as I know we've also been talking a lot about a lot of interesting innovations that are coming out of the beauty market as well.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. You know, it's interesting because beauty has provided a protective function for millennia, but only now are we seeing it being taken seriously as something that we really need to apply in our lives. From hand sanitizers that have a time controlled aspect where the sanitizing molecules like last for like 2-3 hours, to this Firefly soap dispenser that glows for the 20 seconds that the CDC recommends you wash your hand. We've seen some really creative things just within hygiene. But another thing that is really interesting to me, because we're all on our screens so much now, is blue light protection. This is something that we've seen growing within sunscreens and sunscreen brands for the last few years, but this new brand, Good Habit Skincare, is fully based off of blue light protection. Everything is infused with blue light protection, and even its ads, as you scroll on Instagram, or if you're reading this ad right now, your skin is being you know, compromised by this blue light. So I think we're really aware of the increased time of technology that is having on our skin. So I think definitely within protection from electronics, and also just reminders. Samsung just added a hand washing reminder on its watch. So it like dings a few times every day. So I think things that keep us hygienic, things that keep us hygienic and things that protect us from all this screen time will definitely be on the rise.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you make a good point on like what protection really means now. And that's obviously one of the reports we're working on right now, rethinking product from the standpoint of protection. And really, to Mallory's point, it doesn't necessarily just mean that we're talking about bacteria or viruses. It's really just rethinking the entire element of all of these different invisible threats that are coming to us, and how can these products protect us. So thank you, Mallory, and thank you, Nia. So if we kind of move into this idea of our quarantine lifestyle, we've seen obviously within the last couple of weeks, a lot of countries are lifting restrictions or kind of loosening them in different ways. And a couple questions we've been getting are kind of surrounding on how we sort of expect this homebody economy that we've been talking a lot about to kind of evolve as these restrictions are loosened. So Kristen, I know you've been doing a lot of research about this in the home market in terms of how this currently is impacting the way we exist in our homes. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more as to how you see this happening right now and how we see it evolving in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We can expect that these shifts that we're currently seeing aren't going to go away right after quarantine restrictions are lifted. First of all, working from home is here to stay. Even once the restrictions are eased, we can expect a larger proportion of people to work remotely. In fact, it could become standard for jobs that have the ability to work from home to offer remote opportunities at least a couple of days a week. What this means is that more and more people will ditch their current dining room table setups for more reserved office spaces within their home, equipped with everything they need from a proper chair and a desk. Secondly, we will all begin to cook at home more. While in confinement, many of us are using this time to improve our culinary skills and boost our confidence in the kitchen. While consumers are learning more about cooking, they're also noticing just how much money they could save by preparing their meals at home, and they're also opting for more healthier options in the long run. Another thing to note is that while DIY brands are currently surging, consumers won't just ditch their creative endeavors the minute that these restrictions are lifted. We're especially expecting that this will continue during the holiday season. These DIY projects will result in purposeful decorating as well as meaningful gifting opportunities. And lastly, this pandemic has triggered a wave of self-sufficiency that we haven't really seen before, and it's resulted in an uptick of gardening. So consumers are testing out their green thumbs by growing their own produce and flowers for a number of reasons, from the desire to grow their own food just in case of shortages in the future, or purely for therapeutic reasons. And as a result of this, we're seeing that more and more people will be looking to make the move from big cities to more rural residencies. So overall, consumers will want their homes to embody many different kinds of spaces that fit all of their needs in one.
And I think what you mentioned, Kristen, about that idea of purpose and purposeful product is going to be really important. So as you mentioned, everything from like the office, which I know I see a lot of us, and a lot of us are working and calling in from our bedrooms or on our beds, or like Melissa, who has a beautiful screen backdrop that personally just makes me want to redesign my entire apartment. There's a lot of influences, I think, and but to your point, with the purpose of actually having function within them.
Absolutely.
So I think what's also interesting is we've seen a lot in terms, I think you spoke to Kristen, but we're doing a lot more in our homes than we've ever done before. So obviously that's shifting to things like wanting to create an office space, but we're also seeing a lot of people working out in new ways as they no longer are going to workout classes. They're doing them by themselves or joining in digitally. And we've been getting a question, we got a good question the other day asking about what the long-term effects will be on both the fitness and activewear market. And William, I know you actually just released a report that's specifically about this in regards to the homebody economy. I wonder if you could kind of unpack that for us a little bit.
Totally, it's definitely the right time to speak about it. I've been doing a lot of research on this. So I think there's not, like a lot of our editors have been saying, there's not one answer and one like really category that's gonna come out of this. So it's really depending on how the situation evolves. There are many like different outcomes that are possible. There are definitely some signals that we're seeing that prioritize some categories of garments in the activewear and fitness market, but there's still like a lot of uncertainty. So I think we have to look at it from different scenarios. One of the scenarios that Kristen talked about is this idea that we're going to work from home longer than we expect. I just read how Facebook is allowing their workers to work remotely until the end of the year. So I think that's really a possible scenario for more than one company. So I think if you're taking that decision of working from home longer, it also means that you want to work out and exercise on your own and be safer for yourself and for others. So we've already seen online how people have adapted successfully to that transformation of home into a workout space. I think that's something that's going to stay. What does it mean in terms of apparel from that perspective? I think for that category of people, we're going to see more of these transitional pieces. So looking really at these premium essentials that you can wear for your day-to-day, like Zoom meetings, for example, but they're also made in a very performance-ready material, so you don't have to worry about changing out of what you're wearing at the end of the day if you want to go work out. So I think it also resonates with what Michael was speaking about earlier, this idea of like silent streetwear that we're seeing, really blending this high performance active wear with a more athleisure, like street ready look. So I think that's one aspect of it, really elevated athletic wear. I think there's already some brands that are doing it very well. One of my favorites is Jacques NYC. I'll send it in the speaker notes. They really do these premium essentials that kind of go with this idea. So that's one part. I think on the other hand, a lot of people are used to working out with a coach in a gym. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon for safety reasons, and I don't know when the gyms are going to reopen. So there's obviously alternatives. You can work out with online programs, follow videos, but I don't think that's a very immersive alternative. So what I've been seeing is a lot of innovative apparel brands trying to find a solution to that. So coming out with apparel that has embedded connectivity to provide this sort of coaching aspect real time, and not just a program that you can follow, but really provide live feedback. So what a lot of brands are doing right now in that market is they're weaving sensors directly in the garments, so you can kind of compile all that data in your phone app, and then it gives you a live feedback of how you're performing. I think we're at the very beginning of this. It can still feel a little gimmicky for some markets, but I think there's really potential for sports that involve posture, like golf, yoga, rowing. I think there's really potential there. There's also, that's for the brands that are really pushing it forward. They're like weaving it into the garment, but then there's also this idea of just an accessory or a wearable that just comes onto the apparel and just allows you to have that same concept, and it even can vibrate to give you this sort of like physical feedback on how you're performing. So I think that's also a really important category that is going to evolve, and I think activewear is always driven by innovation and technology. So I'm really like keeping an eye on connected apparel right now, even if we're at the very beginning of it. So that's kind of like on the scenario where we're working out from home for a longer period of time. I think another scenario could be that we go back to our social outdoor life quicker than expected, or even if we don't, like some people can't like limit themselves inside and they have to go outside. I know a lot of runners haven't been stopping to go out for runs. They're just being like safer. So that's another category of people and apparel that is linked to it. So I think a lot of innovation is going to focus on protection, especially if you want to be outdoors, protection of yourself and protection of the others. So I've been reading a lot about innovation in terms of modular garments that provide more skin coverage, or little accessories that are, they used to be accessories that they are now embedded directly in the garment. So like air filters in the hoodies that allow you to have a sort of air filter to protect yourself and others. Or even seeing, Nia spoke about it earlier, a real focus on materials with antimicrobial properties. And I think that's something that's even gonna bleed out of the activewear market. I think that's gonna be something that we're gonna see more often in menswear and women's wear, more casual apparel. So yeah, I think like considering these different scenarios because of these uncertain times kind of leads me to believe that one part is going to be this idea of like premium essentials that can fit several categories, working out and working from home. This idea of like connected apparel, which gives you a more immersive experience. And then this whole idea of protective innovation that is really going to be important for several markets. I don't think it's just going to be activewear, but that's where it comes from.
I think that's what's interesting too, to your point, is that so much innovation right now is coming out of the active market. But as you said, all of these different markets and categories are going to bleed into one another, and they're going to be taking kind of inspiration from one another. And I love what you said, William, about this idea of kind of these hybrid products. So things like, I think it's really interesting, this idea where you can have antimicrobial or kind of tech fabrication so that you can work out in the morning and then wear the same outfit and then go sit at your desk or on your bed and start working and not feel like you need to change or shower every time.
Or the other way around, work and then work out.
Exactly. And at the same time, I think it's interesting because I think that is a different way to think about the thing that we've been talking a lot about in our product as protection. And I know you've done a lot of research. I know, Hallie, you've been noticing a lot of things from an accessory standpoint, but the same way that you can wear one garment that will do whatever you need to do in all your different activities, you can also have those garments that then have removable features like the soles. And I know, Hallie, you spoke to this idea of indoor-outdoor wear and kind of how we see that evolving.
Yes, that's something that I think the idea of indoor-outdoor is something that was kind of bubbling up before with just loungewear and athleisure in general, kind of like separating them, but the lines are a little bit blended. But I feel like now it's going to be completely separate categories because we are so conscious of what we're wearing outdoor and bringing it in, from taking our gloves off when we go to the grocery store, making sure you've removed your masks from just the straps, and just kind of like that extra degree of cautiousness that we're sensing, I feel like is going to bleed into the product design. So consumers now just want extra value from their products. They want these 2-in-1 features, so you're getting more bang for your buck, but also they want them to have multi-purposes and multi-functions and like kind of these modular components, to basically just having any sort of a more thoughtful approach that is a reaction to this current moment. So from accessories like the slip-ons or the removable soles, there's a brand, Mouvez Footwear, who is doing a really great kind of prototype of it, and they are trying to patent pen this EVA sole that it's removable without your hands. So when you're outside, you don't have to worry about coming back in. You can just kind of step out of your soles, don't have to worry about tracking germs or dirt or bacteria into your house. And then you actually have like an additional piece when you're like a functional house slipper. So I think that these kind of elements are perfect for our newly germophobic society going forward, even because first of all, you get this 2-in-1 product. You don't have to worry about the sanitation of it. It's gonna immediately, like the soles are gonna be left at the door, even outside the house. But you also have these adaptability elements. So you have a shoe that's inside and outside. And I think this is something that brands should consider integrating in all kinds of product categories. I know William has also been doing research on some like removable shells or kind of like activewear components, but I think these are the kind of thoughtful things in design that consumers are really gonna want after this pandemic, to get kind of like, they just want to invest in something that's gonna have a purpose and give them protection, and it's also be something that they're gonna use and gonna wear.
Totally. I love that you spoke to that added value and to this idea of purpose. I think after this, it's going to be the time more than ever to do garments that have added value because of these multifunctional capabilities, but also get more out of it, that you can just like work out, but also use it if it's really harsh weather. So purpose is definitely something that's on our radar, and it's been for a while, but I think now is definitely the time.
Yeah, I feel like now we have a different sort of purpose that was mostly kind of just like physical, but now it's almost like our health and like the health of the community. So it's a little bit bigger. So I feel like it's going to be a little bit more of a dire need and a little bit faster for some brands to adopt.
Yeah, and just that idea of functionality as the new luxury, I think, is really important. And I think to what you both spoke to, this idea of really looking outside of your own market and your own product categories to find inspiration other places. I mean, obviously so much is coming out of active. There's so much innovation. And I think there's also a lot of innovation from an accessories perspective of these kind of hard goods that you can kind of create these modular effects. But what could that mean to suiting? What could that mean to knitwear? Like, I think there's so much opportunity for innovation here. And I think it's really exciting to see how this is going to evolve. But the value add here is really that focus on protective functionality.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to add on?
No, I just think that's a great, it also leads into a bigger conversation that like shared value is really important right now, because we're going to be able to learn from all these small markets that have their specialties, and then we're going to take these innovation from running and like apply them to every day because they're really suitable. But then there's so much more to do from not only design, but just values, and learn from one another in terms of like brand, and learn from other markets to make a better fashion industry, I think.
And exactly to what you're saying, I think there's no use, it doesn't make sense to silo the way that we're currently siloing, because the person who's buying activewear is also buying the suit, is also buying the sweater. Like rethinking product from a lifestyle perspective and rethinking your consumer rather than a demographic perspective, but what is their lifestyle? What are the different things that they're going to need? And to William's point, how can you create, I don't know, a suit that you can also run in, or you can do these different things that is hybridization in a very, very new and kind of realistic way. So thank you. I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how we track this and evolve. And I definitely encourage everyone, again, to check out our product as protection report that we'll be posting next week. I want to take a little bit of a segue away from this concept of product and really think about this idea of customer service. And I know we've been talking about this a lot. If anyone tuned in for our client exclusive webinar yesterday, we talked about the top COVID-19 priorities, one of which really being this idea of engaging with your customer and what does that digital experience look like? What does the physical one look like in the months and the years ahead? Michael, I know you've been really looking into this and kind of doing some research. I wonder if you can kind of speak to how you see this happening now and going forward.
Yeah, customer service is going to be probably one of the most essential ways that you can succeed in the coming year, because the retailers that are back, they're going to be really fighting for every single sale that they can get. So it's really going to be important to encourage customized, personalized customer service in many ways. For people that joined on Show and Tell on Wednesday, I was really happy with an article I saw about Suit Supply. It's a brand we really love. They have hundreds of locations around the world, and obviously it's not a kind of retail experience where you can just go in and pick a sweater off the table and purchase it. It really, requires a lot of interaction, because we're talking about customized suits and dress shirts, etc. And they've already created a really cool kind of freestanding partition so that when the stores are open again, that the tailors and the customers can do what they need to do without putting each other in danger. But one other thing I really love that they're doing is they have this new virtual co-browsing. So just like we can all now watch something on Netflix together and we can be in it at the same time, a lot of these brands are creating co-browsing so that you can log on to the website and you can shop with your stylist, your personal shopper, with an associate at the very moment that you're browsing, and they can actually see what you're looking at. They can lead you to other places. You can put things aside so that when the store is open again, they'll be able to have it for you. So those are the kind of things that I've been really excited about. One great thing is that, contrary to what a lot of people probably want you to think, is that I don't think customer service will be like bionic customer service for the future. I don't think we're going to be taking the human element out of customer service. Contrary to that, I think it's going to be more about not only, making customer service more human, but more humane, okay? And I think that's really important, to bridge between the digital and the physical world again. So I was thinking about who was really inspiring me and pressing me with customer service over the last year pre-COVID-19. Nordstrom really came to mind when they opened their new men's store in New York City. And I was really, really interested in what they were doing to kind of get a whole new generation of guys shopping there. And I think that what they were doing should be applied to everyone. For instance, you could buy anything online 24/7 and go there, and there would be a person to bring it to you at the door, even if it was 3 a.m, right? I also love that for returns, you can go into the store. You don't have to interact with the customer, with a person at all. You can go right to this very central location, scan your barcodes, deposit your returns into this box, and then leave. So I really love that kind of idea as well. And I think that the stores that are really going to thrive in the next few years are the ones that are going to give you a highly specific, individual perspective on style and seamless customer service. And I think I pulled a couple of really cool examples technology wise. There's a program called Hero that is a suite of software products. It's allowing associates to live stream shopping sessions from their stores. Nike, John Barbados, Harvey Nichols in London, they've all been using it for the last year. And it creates a really cool, realistic shopping experience. And I think now that we're so much more comfortable being on camera, a la Zoom and, you know, TikTok and every other thing, I think that interacting with your stylist or your sales associate via camera won't be a weird thing anymore. And then another app that I pulled is called Bond, and it just launched at the end of 2019, and I love this. It's connecting sales associates at boutiques to sell products outside their own inventory. So they give an example in the article that I'm going to put in the comments in a second. Say that you love your guy at Celine. He's like your top associate. You go to him for everything. But right now they don't have the pair of pants that you really, really like are jonesing over and want to love. So your Celine guy uses the app and he works with a network using a platform to chat with other sales associates at other designer stores to try to find what you need. And then he gets a commission from that. So it's like above and beyond, trying to go beyond just the physical walls of where the inventory is and really trying to customize that experience for people.
I mean, I think what's so exciting about what you're talking about and kind of the future of what customer service can look like is the fact that so many of these solutions have existed in little ways, or little startups have come up with them, but they've been a nice to have versus a need to have. And what is this really going to look like when we see this innovation, all these innovations accelerate?
Yeah, totally. And another thing that I loved is that there was a Harris poll that came out, I think in November of last year, that found that almost 80% of millennials are now preferring experiences over things. That's not new to us. We knew that. But I think what's kind of interesting is we've been talking a lot about product through emotional fulfillment, emotional maximalism. And I think in many ways, an experience definitely can just be simply shopping for awesome, cool things. Like, I don't think we have to overthink it. Like, it's just,
that's what it should
right?
be.
Seamless experience that brings you joy. That's all.
Right. Rather than adding all of the miscellaneous coffee shops and experiences and things that kind of take you away from the actual shopping experience, how do you enhance that and help people find what they really want and need right now? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Michael, and all of the references. As you said, you'll put all of those that you kind of mentioned into the chat right now, correct?
Yeah, there's an awesome article that GQ actually wrote. It's really meaty, and it's about shopping's digital future is weirdly human. It's very meaty, and it's not just surface level, and I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Awesome. Well, I think this idea of humanized experiences from a digital perspective is really interesting right now. And I think these webinar series for us have been such a great example of that, in the ways we've been able to engage and connect with community that we didn't necessarily have before, and lifting the paywall to offer these webinars to non-clients as well as our clients has been this great experience of really kind of seeing this community come together and hearing questions and people sharing what they're going through has been really amazing. We had a couple other questions. I'm going to save them for our next Q&A because we are running out of time. But I wanted to thank, first of all of my editors for joining me today for this awesome conversation. All of the research that you guys have been doing has been amazing. So thank you for bringing that to the foray and sharing that with everyone today. This webinar, of course, is just a taste of what we have at Fashion Snoops. And we encourage you to continue with us as we present a little bit of a pared down version going forward. So we'll be sharing our show and tell kind of every other week rather than every week going forward. But if anyone in the audience is interested in learning more about our site or would like to kind of be in the know of our Thrive guides, please type in demo to the chat so our team can reach out to you. And with that, I'd like to switch it over to Sarah to close us out and just talk about a couple different offerings that we're also adding.
Thanks, Jenna. I saw in the chat someone said it's hard to type in the chat when you're so in tune to the conversation, and I feel the same way. You know, I work with these great people every day, but I'm so enthralled when I hear them speak, and there really is so much more to explore on the FS platform. And what we really love about these questions is that we are experiencing an unprecedented time, and the fact that you all are focusing on what to do next and really taking stock in the climate of how everyone is feeling and the cultural shifts occurring is really something that speaks to us at FS, because we truly believe it's important to make product that matters and make product that truly speaks to your consumer needs. So if you are interested in more of these insights, we do hope that you will check out our new COVID-19 Insights section. If you are a client, we have a brand new AI tracker that's pulling in articles from leading global publishers relating to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also have a ton of new reports addressing these issues and offering actionable strategies and solutions for you. The first one being our Act Now Priorities Report. We also have the webinar that we did yesterday for you to view on demand. So if you're a client, just head over to the fashionsnoops.com platform. And if you're not a client, but you're interested in learning more, type contact in the chat box or write to us at sales@fashionsnoops.com, and our team can walk you through the site and show you what you can expect. Additionally, I just want to mention that we do have a limited time monthly subscription program that we're offering. So if you need solutions and answers now, please type contact in the chat box or email us, and we can tell you a little bit more about how you can sign up for this program and gain access to our platform with no long-term commitment required. So that's it for us today. Again, we hope that you join us next week. You can see our schedule below. On Tuesday for clients, we have another Thrive Guide webinar for you, which we'll be sending out more information on how to join soon. And then on Wednesday, we'll be back with show and tell. And on Thursday, we have a really great webinar that's available for all of you with Messe Frankfurt, who's the leader in the textile trade show industry. We put together a great panel, and we're going to be talking about sustainability and how to make that the new normal. And some of the editors you saw today will be joining us for that as well. So we hope to see you next week. Please visit fashionsnoops.com/events for the schedule and to also access all of our webinars on demand. And if you have any questions, please continue to type them in the chat box. We'll get to some if we can, and if not, then we'll save them for our next Q&A session. And thank you to the team. Thank you, Jenna, for hosting. Thank you all the editors for joining us today, and thank you to all of you. We'll see you soon.